All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Retro Gamers. This is episode 87. As you can tell, Larry is not here this week, so I am running the show, and it is Anthony here. And I have a special guest with me and a Retro Gamer virgin, if you don't mind me saying. Please say hello to my friend Jermaine, or Jay.
Hello everyone.
Jay, how you doing today, sir?
Doing fantastic, and yourself?
I'm already doing better because Larry's not here. So, Larry has decided that WrestleMania in New Orleans was more important this weekend, so he could not be here to record, and he's been posting things on Instagram and whatnot.
Nice.
I'm not jealous at all, of course.
Not even a little bit.
No, not even a little bit. Not at all. But you know, thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. You should be honored.
I bow in your presence.
Well, most people do. This week, I thought since Larry's away at WrestleMania that we would not talk wrestling games because he would kill us. But what I wanted to, first off, I wanted to talk to you personally about your experience with video gaming because you go back a ways. I do.
Yes.
So what got you started?
Growing up as a kid, TV generation, video games were kind of came in hand. You kind of wanted to get away. Some kids read. I played video games.
All right.
So, and I lived in the arcades when, you actually went to an arcade and put money in a machine and all that fun stuff.
Oh, so. Yeah. I remember those things.
The good old days.
Yes, I've heard of those.
Yes.
Games that didn't involve giant dance pads and Beat Manias and all that kind of stuff.
Just a button and a joystick.
I don't want to say what I had in my mind there.
I'm sure you did.
No, well, trust me, I did. So then, what was your first console?
First console was Atari 2600.
Ooh,
yes,
nice.
Yes,
that was also my first console as well, if I remember correctly.
Absolutely.
Favorite game?
Favorite game was Pitfall.
Ooh. Wait, Pitfall. Yes, okay. You know what's funny? Whenever I think about Pitfall, I always confuse it with Jungle Hunt in my head.
Yes,
Jungle Hunt.
Yes, I do.
They were somewhat similar. All right, cool. And then in terms of favorite system, we're just gonna go all out. Talk to me.
Favorite system? Well, because of more of the nostalgia factor, NES.
NES.
Original, yeah. No. That was my first real adult system. So it was.
What kind of games did you get?
Well, it's. But it was my first system where it wasn't it was kind of my bigger intro into gaming. So,
all right, cool. Well, what games do you remember most on that one?
Oh, Mario Brothers, of course. It's Double Dribble.
Double Dribble.
Blades of Steel.
Blades of Steel. I remember that too.
Absolutely. Whatever kind of tickled my fancy. But those are the ones that really stuck out to me as my first games.
Okay.
So,
were you big into sports games?
I was. And then. Later on down the road, you get into different games as they kind of become prevalent. But those were the ones I can remember that kind of got me started into it.
All right, very cool. Yeah, I was never much. I guess growing up as a kid, I wasn't really into sports. I played. My dad tried to get me to play baseball, and I spent the entire season getting on base by getting hit by the ball instead of swinging the bat.
Hey, whatever you can do.
Exactly. So I wasn't that big into sports games. I was big into wrestling games. So when WrestleMania came out on NES, it was
absolutely
a big deal, even though it was a terrible game.
True.
But so not too big. Blades of Steel, of course, is probably my favorite game. And one of our listeners, Charlie, my good old pal Charlie. Hey Charlie, what's going on? I think he's still a little sore because we went to a convention last August, or an expo, Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, and they had Blades of Steel set up, and I spanked him 19-7 or something like that.
Yeah,
he's still a little sore, but that's okay because I was the one that won, so I'm good with that.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and then as time went on with sports, just let's just follow the sports game thread. You had some really great ones like NBA Jam. When
Oh
that came
yeah,
out.
that was
awesome.
that was the absolute pivotal one for me.
Yes,
the game was amazing.
Yeah, it's just one of the it was like I don't know how they managed. I guess it was the mix of like it felt like very rock and roll and just fast, and
it was more fast paced. But then it was like the dunks were more elaborate. You know, I mean, because you shot in the game, but it was more of a I'm going to go for the dunk and try and break the backboard, which was always the thing for the guys that I played with. Like who can break the backboard first? So that was always the fun part for me when it.
You wanted those cool animations. That
absolutely,
you know? And then that was actually the same company too. When Acclaim did that one, they used that model to make. Do you remember WrestleMania, the arcade game?
I do. I absolutely do.
Same exact thing with when you did like the special moves and you had those cool animations and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And who could ever forget one of the best inspired games by a basketball player, Shaq Fu.
Sorry. Yes, I do remember that game very well.
Yes, exactly. So, do you still game? Do you do current gaming?
Yeah, I mean, I have a PS4.
Okay.
So, I still game. Like right now, I'm playing NBA 2K. Of course, going with the sports thing. But
who's your team?
The Lakers, of course.
Oh, duh.
So
we only live in LA.
Exactly. So, but now, but my favorite game, or some of my favorite games, are the Uncharted series. Was my favorite. God of War, which they have one coming out in another week or two.
Is it a remastered or new?
It's new. Now he's no longer from the Greek mythology. He's actually going more. Oh wow! I totally
Roman or
more
independent,
more Norse. Yeah. So and he has a son. So it's kind of an offshoot of the story, but it's kind of a new genre. So it's going to be interesting to see how the game plays out.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about there's one that I'm interested in on PlayStation 4, but it's a remaster of Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah, I played the original, so that was a fantastic game. And I'm curious to see what it's going to look like now. So I'm really curious about that one.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
very cool. Well, that was a good little background of everything, Jay, and let's wrap up this episode. No, I'm just kidding. But today when we were texting this week after you graciously accepted my invitation to be my next victim on this show.
Yes.
I was talking to you about what we could possibly talk about, and you had brought up arcade games.
Yes.
Specifically because you were big into arcade gaming, and so was I. There were many a pizzeria.
Oh, sure.
Where I grew up in Brooklyn that had arcade games, not to mention actual arcades. So, so I thought this would be a good episode. We haven't talked arcades for a while, Larry and I. We're usually very we've been told we're very Nintendo heavy.
Yeah.
in our discussions.
Okay.
Which I'm not going to lie is true, because we do talk. We both love Nintendo so much. I mean,
sure.
I have my Xbox and my PlayStation love too, but Nintendo is special.
Absolutely.
But so I wanted to swing back to arcade gaming this week, and so I decided to do a little research on my own. With the International Arcade Museum, which you can find on www.arcade-museum.com, and to talk about some of the stuff that they have up there. But before we get to that, in terms of arcade games, just back when you used to hit up arcades and whatnot, like what's the story? Like what were the hot spots for you? Where did you go?
Well, there was a place in. Because I'm from Long Beach, California. So there was a place in Lakewood called Aladdin's Arcade. And that was the spot to go to. They always had the cool new games. And when I was going through high school and college, that was the place I would go after school to kind of hone my skills or just escape for a little while. But that was like the hot spot. Or the mall. They always had like the inside the mall arcade. And then they had a really tiny putting place, or a miniature golf place called its name is escaping me. It was like a putt place is what they called it. But anyways, but they had like an arcade there, so that was the places I went to hone my skills and have my fun when it came to the arcade games.
Cool. Did you ever go to the? This is just me with another pop culture reference. Did you ever go to the arcade out here that was? That they used in the Karate Kid movie?
Yes, golf and stuff. Absolutely.
Yes.
I've actually been there, and that's another place where I played miniature golf.
Nice.
And I almost died on the water slide there.
You talking that big giant one?
That big giant water slide that they had to remove because the sides were too short.
Is that why they removed it? Okay.
Yes. Well, 2 people died on it.
Okay. Yeah, then that's why they removed
allegedly.
it. Allegedly. How do you allegedly kill people?
Yes, but I know why, because I almost fell off in it myself.
Holy cow! Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think a year or two ago, a friend of mine and she actually texted me and she's like, do you want to go to golf and stuff? I was like, because she loves Karate Kid also, so we always do like these outings where we'll go to famous filming locations, and golf and stuff doesn't seem to be like that famous, but people who love Karate Kid know it.
Absolutely.
So we went. So we drove down there, and we were like, "Oh, there it is! Hey, where's the water slide?" Was the first thing we said.
Exactly.
But it's cool that they still have the arcade, and not only do they still have the arcade, but I believe, if I remember correctly, there's still wood paneling up in there.
Oh yeah, it is pretty close to form as you remember it from the Karate Kid movie.
Yes, and then they have a big collage of like photos from the Karate Kid.
Absolutely, yes, they do,
which is awesome. Some of the games in there definitely feel like they've been there also for 30
years. Yes, they do.
But I'm trying to think, like when I was a kid, like there were a handful of arcades around me. Like I remember on Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, there was this little rinky-dink amusement park called Buddies. And when I say rinky-dink, I'm talking about it maybe filled up 1 block.
Oh wow!
Like it was really small, and they had like this really tiny roller coaster and a couple of other rides. But attached to it they had an arcade, and that was one of the main arcade, like the bigger arcades that I used to go to as a kid, which I absolutely loved. Otherwise, it was always waiting for whatever arcade my pizzeria had,
yes,
or whatever the video rental store had.
Gotcha.
Each one would have like a couple of arcades, whatever they may be, and they would swap them out after so long. Mm-hmm. But it was always kind of cool. And then as I grew up, I was able to venture out and find other arcades because I was older and I could leave my block without getting in trouble.
Yes, you were actually able to travel a little bit.
Yes, way back when. For people listening who were born after, I want to say the mid-90s, parents used to allow you to leave your block and walk several blocks to places to go to a comic book store or an arcade or something like that. Nowadays, you can't even leave your yard.
No.
That is, if anybody goes out in the yard anymore, that may even be too far.
You could take a bus. That's what I would do. I would take the bus from my house.
Take a bus
to the mall. Yeah, exactly. Go figure.
Wow. They let you do that?
Yeah, they did.
How long was your leash?
Long enough where I could go without having to worry about coming back really quickly.
Nice. Yeah, these days it's you Uber.
Yes, you can Uber to your
Uber.
destination. Yes.
Just throw your 6-year-old in an Uber.
Yes, Uber or Lyft. Find a way to get there.
Exactly. But all right, so circling back to the International Arcade Museum. So I just wanted to go through. They have so for anybody who's never been on this website, they are the arcade website, at least the one that I can find, since they're calling themselves an actual International Arcade Museum, and it's registered. Also known as the Killer List of Video Games, which I found interesting.
All right.
So, first thing I wanted to talk about here was the top 10 most popular arcade games as selected by their readers.
Okay.
So, I'm curious to see a lot of the names up on this list are very familiar.
Okay.
So I just want to run through these top 10, and then let's just talk about them if you played them. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't, you're really missing out, because I can't imagine any of these on the list you haven't played.
Yeah.
So there's a tie for number 10. Okay. One of them is Centipede. Do you
Absolutely.
remember Centipede? Do you know that they made a board game out of it recently?
No.
Yeah, it's at Barnes & Noble, and I'm interested in picking it up just to see.
I think you almost kind of have to.
Yeah, just to try it.
Just because. Yeah.
But, Centipede's coming in at number 10 on this list. And, for anybody listening who hasn't played Centipede, you're really missing out. A very simple concept of, you're this little guy at the bottom of the screen shooting at the centipede that's coming at you ridiculously faster as the levels go on. But when you shoot it, it actually, the part of the centipede breaks off and then becomes... I don't know. I used to call them mushrooms. The little things.
Technically, what they are, mushrooms.
Yeah, the little little mushrooms. So basically, you turned your centipede into mushrooms, but then based on where you shot it, it would split off and then become 2. So if you shot it in the middle, then you had 2 centipedes coming at you.
Correct.
And you had to shoot it until you shot every piece, or if it got to the bottom of the screen, then it killed you. And
the secret to that was really you wanted to shoot the head. You really wanted to shoot the head because as you shot the head, it would just shorten it down. And then as you shot the head, also, as you were saying, you could strategically, if you're really good at it, you could strategically get the mushrooms to where the next centipede would go through basically like a tunnel.
Yep.
And so it was kind of like you were a sniper. But if you got a little too over anxious and you shot it in the middle, then yes, it would split, and now you're in trouble.
Exactly. Right. And especially when you got to I remember not getting very far in that game. I would get to maybe like level 3, and then just get destroyed.
Yes.
But your strategy was the one that I would always employ. But it's like if you just missed one.
Oh yeah.
If you were just off by a second, it split into uneven centipedes, and then they just killed you.
Exactly.
But so Centipede came in at number 10. And it was actually tied with another game, which was called Tempest. Do you remember Tempest?
I remember Tempest, yes.
How well do you remember Tempest?
I remember Tempest quite well. Very frustrating game for me.
In what way?
Well, the controls were interesting because, you just had the knob, and you were basically shooting to destroy whatever was crawling up, usually spiders or some type of thing was crawling up this tube, but they were different shapes and, very geometric shapes that would come along, and it was just frustrating. Especially there were these little red X's that would come, and if you didn't hit the X, it would attach itself to the outside, and if you hit the X, you would it was a pain to deal with.
Now, did you play the stand-up one or the cocktail table version?
Stand-up one.
Okay. Yeah, I like that game. To me, as a cocktail table, was a bit. It was just a little more. Like, it was way more complicated. So, sit there, put your head down, and trying to figure it out. I mean, Pac-Man was one thing. Like, my friend had a Pac-Man cocktail table. That was fine. Yes. I was like, this game, I remember trying it on one of those tables, and it was just absolutely insane. Yes.
Even Centipede on a cocktail was a little difficult, because you had this, and you couldn't really see your hands. So, because, it was a roller ball, so it was tough.
Yeah, the angles were bad. Of course, now we play games on cell phones looking down anyway. Exactly. I can't wait till our generation is older and we all have the hunchback.
Yes, we're basically going to have that.
Man, millennial doctors are going to make a killing off of us.
Oh yeah, and chiropractors.
My chiropractor's already making a killing off of me.
Absolutely.
And I'm not even doing that yet.
Yet.
But soon.
Exactly.
All right, coming in at number 9, we've got Tron.
Oh yeah, I love Tron.
Yeah, one of the first video games that wound up becoming a movie, I believe, right?
Yes, one of the first. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Tron. It was funny. Tron was one of those games I think I wound up playing later than when it was in the arcade, and I don't know why. It was I was definitely much older when I played Tron.
Funny is the first time I played Tron was at Disneyland.
Ooh.
When they had Starcade was the video arcade at Disneyland, and so that was like one of my first introductions to Tron, because the People Mover was a ride that actually part of the ride had Tron in it.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
With all my Disney knowledge, I'm upset.
So that was the first time I'd actually played Tron was at Disneyland. So it kind of tied everything together for me.
So was the arcade in Tomorrowland, like where it is now?
Yes. So there's where Starcade is like a where they have all the souvenirs and stuff.
Yep.
There was another room beyond that had all the arcades, all the arcade games, and they've since done away with it. But this was actually years and years and years ago.
Of course.
So it was like this little offshoot arcade that they had.
Wasn't there also a second floor?
Yes, there was, because I played air hockey upstairs. Yes.
Yeah, because I always remember when I go to Disneyland in that area, there's you see that escalator that goes nowhere. Mm-hmm. And it's what used to be up there?
Yeah, it was the second floor, so it was nice because you go up there and play more games and then air hockey as well.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Now, I always found it tough, though, because if I'm going to Disneyland, the last thing I'm thinking in my mind is, oh, gee, I'm going to play some arcade games.
Exactly. So, but I mean, back then they also didn't have as much rides and also things of that nature. So you had to fill your time with other things, and that's what you kind of did. So
very true.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, moving on to number 8, Defender. Do you remember Defender?
I do remember Defender. Yes.
Well, this game was always a pain in the butt for me, because I remember playing it more on the Atari than I do in the arcade. But I don't know why. I just died so fast in this game.
I think it had a lot to do because of the way that you could you could turn your ship
Yes.
in different ways, and this was before you can normally it was like a side scroll, so it was you could just go one way and that was all you did. But now you can I can pivot, and so that kind of threw you, especially if you weren't paying attention or if you hit the button wrong.
Yeah,
that's what always got me.
Yeah, not only that, it was like it was a side scroller, so the fact that you were able to move in both directions and the screen moved with you.
Yeah,
most games back then, you just had the single screen and you moved around it.
Exactly.
So yeah, it was kind of cool that way. And speaking of games with a single screen that you move around, number 7, Asteroids.
Ah, yes.
This game was my first obsession.
Really?
Yes. And actually, I should say my first family's obsession. My mom and my dad and myself, we used to always compete to see who got the highest score in Asteroids.
Awesome.
To the point where, they would fight. Like, they would fight over who got to play next, and I would just be sitting there, and I'm like, wait a minute. I go, I'm the 6-year-old. I want to play.
It's my turn.
It's my turn. We used to have a little black and white tube TV in the corner of our dining room with the Atari.
Oh yeah.
And that's all that TV was for the Atari, just sitting in the corner.
Nice.
It was awesome, and I just remember my mom. I remember my mom always. Was my mom better than my dad? Or my dad? I'm trying to remember. There was definitely competition.
Sure.
I was always best though.
But and that's all that matters.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the kid always wins out.
Yes, exactly.
You can't have the parents beat you.
Faster reflexes. That's all.
Exactly. But did you play this one a lot or no?
I played it a lot in the arcades, and I did have it for Atari as well. I liked it better in the arcade though.
Okay.
It was more fun to me in the arcade.
I used to. Yeah, I remember the first time I found out that you could warp in a way.
Yes.
I did it by accident, and it blew my mind. I was like, "Oh my god, I warped! This is the coolest thing ever!" And then an asteroid hit me when I resurfaced, and I'm like, "All right, I'm never doing that again."
Yeah, you're like, "Oh, I did it by accident as well," but I was pushing buttons and. Oh wow! You can go to another. Now I'm dead. Oh, why did I do that?
And then from then on, I would just stay in the middle.
Yeah, just stay in the middle and pivot.
Stay in the middle until you had to move.
Exactly.
Oh man! All right, number 6. One of the first colorful games I remember playing, Dig Dug.
Oh yeah, Dig Dug was awesome.
The coolest thing for me, because there were 2 games that were similar that I would play all the time. One was Dig Dug and one was Mr. Do.
Oh yes. Mr. 2 was amazing,
which was really cool. But I always liked Dig Dug better because I really enjoyed inflating my enemies until they exploded.
Yeah,
there was there was something cathartic about it. Maybe because I was a disturbed child, I don't know, but
it can happen. It's true.
Well, yeah, and it did happen many times. Ask any of my childhood friends.
Okay,
if you can find them.
I don't even want to go into that with you, Anthony.
No, we don't know each other that well yet, do we?
Not yet, no.
No, but soon.
Exactly. Okay.
By the end of this episode.
All right.
Number 5, Larry's favorite game, arcade game of all time, or favorite game of all time, and definitely a force to be reckoned with, Ms. Pac-Man.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who didn't play Ms. Pac-Man?
I don't know. I mean, I always find it interesting that taking Pac-Man and sticking a bow on him and a little lipstick can make such a big difference. And eyelashes.
Absolutely. And eyelashes, yes.
Get the eyelashes.
Yes.
But, I mean, a lot of people will argue that Ms. Pac-Man is far superior to the original Pac-Man.
I would agree.
You think so?
Agree. Yeah. Well, Pac-Man set the precedent. Ms. Pac-Man just stepped up the game of that precedent. That's why. I mean, it just had a little bit more something to it. But it was fun. I mean, still a fun game.
Were you just a sucker for the love story with the cutscenes?
Of course. Who wasn't, But
I don't know.
It was just a fun game. It was a really fun game to play.
I always wanted the cutscenes to have, like, a continuing story. So, like, they meet and then, they fall in love and then they have a baby. They have baby Pac-Man. But then I wanted Miss Pac-Man to come back and say that the baby wasn't his.
Wasn't
that would be
awesome.
Yeah, see?
Very Moria.
Right. Today that's how it would have panned out.
Exactly.
Although if you want to do Moria, it's like, Pac-Man does a paternity test and he's not the father.
Oh, and then he celebrates with the crowd and high fives everyone.
Exactly. And then like Trailer Park Pac-Man shows up and he's the dad.
Or it could be one of the ghosts. It kind of throw that twist.
Oh man, that would be awesome. And the father is Blinky. What? He's not even red.
Exactly.
Oh no, wait, I'm sorry. That's Clyde. Clyde's the red one. I don't remember which. Blinky is. Was he the light blue one? Maybe it was Inky, Blinky, something, and Clyde.
Yeah, I can never.
And then there was Sue, the pink one.
Yes.
But we won't get into that.
No.
Then there was this whole competition between Miss Pac-Man and Sue, and who's the better girl?
Yeah.
Anyway, Miss Pac-Man, my version, I gotta make my version one day.
You should.
Number 4. I remember this had to have been like one of the first games to really blow my mind. The original Star Wars arcade game.
Yes.
With the first person shooting and man, talk about taking a license and flying with it. That was that. Yeah, I mean that game blew my mind. When you play it now, of course, it's completely rudimentary because you're just seeing like, oh, look, lines.
Yeah, exactly.
There were lines on the screen.
Yeah, we'll just work with these.
Yeah, I don't think, and this is something also I think Larry and I talk about sometimes, where like I don't think today's generation will ever appreciate how to really marvel at a game because they didn't grow up when the whole industry was in its infancy.
Yeah.
So just seeing a game where it's like, all right, it's a grid on a screen, but you're controlling what's happening to it. It was just,
it's ahead of its. I mean, it was light years ahead of what it was supposed to be then.
Right.
And so they'll never, this new generations will never understand how that. Like to see the progression is just a crazy thing to see.
I know. Like nowadays, it's all about wow, the graphics are so real. It looks like real life, and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. I'm like, but I live in real life.
Exactly.
I'm cool with it not looking like real life.
I don't need it to look like real life.
Exactly. Because my real life is sad.
Yeah.
So I don't really. That's like The Sims. Like when you used to play The Sims. Like I remember being obsessed with that game for like a year, and then I realized at some point, like it dawned on me. I said, wait a minute. I'm like, I'm enjoying making these characters live really boring lives more than me living my own boring life, and that's when I stopped playing.
Yeah, you kind of came to us, and you're like, wow. You were like, okay, we're
done with this.
Yeah,
and we're absolutely done with this. Although I did enjoy Roller Coaster Tycoon because I used to.
Fun.
Yeah, it was fun, especially when you would like make really crazy things and make the guests throw up.
Oh yeah, that was the fun part.
That was always fun. Or making roller coasters that don't end.
Yeah, they just continue. They're just continuous.
And then the cars just fly off it. No, I like that. Like, what? There's a break in the track. Okay, bye. All right, back to the list. Number 3, one of the greatest games ever made. Period. Donkey Kong.
Oh yes. Oh, that was a fantastic game.
Yes. Did you know that Donkey Kong was originally supposed to be Popeye?
I did know that.
Ah.
Yes, I did know that. I did a little research on that, and I was like, wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, they couldn't get the license to Popeye, so Donkey Kong became Donkey Kong.
And but they did a Popeye game.
Yes. They wound up doing a Popeye game that was a little bit like... I think they used the same game engine for it once they had the license years later. It actually came out on... I think I have it on NES. It came out on NES.
Yes.
But the arcade game, it had levels like that, like the way Donkey Kong did. But but just imagine that way back when that would have... Like how the industry would have been different if that was a Popeye game. Because we'd be talking about... Would we be talking about Bluto as the big Donkey Kong monkey?
Yeah. More, I mean, because basically, and Popeye is, and then the princess. It would
have been Olive Oil, instead of Pauline.
That's crazy.
Yep. But I mean, we've talked about Donkey Kong a lot on this show. There's not much left you can say about it, except for and we did talk about this not too long ago that there was a documentary on Donkey Kong. I don't know if you've ever seen it, called A Fistful of Quarters.
I haven't seen it yet, but I want to.
Awesome. It's all about 2 guys trying to break the Donkey Kong record.
Okay.
And one of the guys, Billy Mitchell, who has held on to the record for the longest time now, his record is being brought into question.
Oh.
So he may be losing that record.
A little bit of controversy.
Yes, there's some controversy.
Okay.
Maybe we can get them on Maury. We'll see. You are not the record holder. Number 2, we're in the top 2 here. So number 2, Galaga.
Yes.
So I don't know what there is to say about Galaga except how awesome the game was.
Fun game. And my mission was always to get the 2 ships.
You had to get the 2 ships.
Yeah.
There was no. I'm trying. My brain is trying to think of the other game that was similar to it that I used to play all the time.
Was it Galaxian?
No. Oh man. It was no. Space Invaders.
Yes.
2 very similar games, but Galaga had more color. The characters would eventually fly down and attack you and stuff like that. Yeah, it was definitely a more challenging game, but it was one of those games you always you just could not stay away from.
Yeah, you always play. I mean, even to this day, if I see a Galaga machine, I'm playing it.
Yeah, right. It's one of those go-tos. It's like you can be surrounded by all the coolest new games, but Galaga's the one to go to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Galaga and Miss Pac-Man. Those are the two I always fly towards.
Yeah, you always see them and you go, I gotta play it.
Yeah, and Ladybug for some reason, but I don't know why.
Okay.
And number 1 for the top 10 most popular games, as selected by the Killer video game list people. No surprise here, Pac-Man.
Of course.
At the top. I mean, who doesn't love Pac-Man? I think even non-gamers know the obsession that is Pac-Man.
It's iconic. It's an iconic game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it shows up everywhere. It's like you look you go to any arcade, if they don't have Pac-Man, there's something wrong with them.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah, there's something wrong.
Not to mention the fact that it's been probably in almost every facet of television, film. I'm thinking of the giant Pac-Man from Pixels.
Yes.
Terrible movie, but...
Yes. But fun.
But fun. So, so that's it for the top 10 most popular games as selected by the Killer List of Video Games at the International Arcade Museum. And for anybody out there listening, if you have any, what are your favorite games? What are the ones that you remember playing? You can sound off on our Facebook page, and we'll continue the discussion there. All right, Jay. So we're here at one of our mini segments that we have here, and we do these little quick hits every once, in between our longer segments to just give people a breather before we run our mouths forever.
Okay.
And this one, we're gonna do a special retro record. Okay.
All right.
And this record, we're sticking with the arcade theme this week, is the longest single credit session of an arcade game. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's an actual Guinness record for the person who spent the longest time at an arcade machine on only 1 quarter.
Wow.
And that record belongs to Ed Heemskerk of St. Augustine, Florida. On March 2nd, 2012, he started a game of Q*bert.
Oh, wow, Q*bert.
He started a game of Q*bert and played it for 68 and a half hours on 1 quarter.
That's amazing.
So 68 and a half hours, when you figure that out, that is almost 3 days without a break.
Oh my gosh.
Okay? So Ed Heemskerk, you definitely have the fortitude that I don't have, because I would have fallen asleep halfway through the first day. So Ed Heemskerk on Q*bert for 68 and a half hours. That is this week's retro record. All right, Jay. So we're going to continue with the arcade-centric theme on this week's episode. And I thought what would be cool is, since the International Arcade Museum has another list on their site, and we're not going to read through this list because that would drive me nuts, you nuts, and everybody listening nuts. They have the top 100 video games of all time leading up to 2000, up until the year 2000, which just so happens to be in our wheelhouse, since that's when we were basically playing most of our arcade games. So I thought maybe what we do is we just go back and forth and talk about some of our fondest memories playing specific arcade games, and we'll see if they happen to show up on the list or not.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. So I'm going to throw it to you first.
Okay.
So any game at all, any arcade game at all that you remember, most fondly, and let's chat.
One of the ones I really enjoyed playing growing up was Ghosts and Goblins.
Oh yes.
Ghosts and Goblins was a fun game, kind of the medieval thing with the trying to get to the princess, saving the whole thing, but the sheer frustration I had playing that game, especially if you got the wrong weapon, was the worst thing about that game. Like, who has fireballs, honestly? Well, and they were awful to use, and if you got that, you might as well just die.
Yeah, you might as well just die. I just never understood the whole concept of when an enemy hits you, you magically lost your clothes. You lost your armor, your clothes, and you're running around in your underwear.
Exactly.
I'm like, that's not what would happen in real. Like, if I got hit by an enemy, the last thing on my mind is, I got to take off all my clothes.
Yeah. Why am I losing clothing by getting hit by an enemy?
Yeah, exactly. It's I think whoever designed the game maybe had a thing for strip poker or something. I don't know.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because well, anyway, we can go on and on about that.
We could go for days about that.
Yes, we could. But do you remember? Like, this was also one of the first games that was notorious for its lost in translation issues. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, I'm talking about games that were translated into English, from Japanese.
Okay.
And when you got to the end of the game and you found the princess, I don't know if you ever did, because I never did. The game was too damn hard.
Okay.
The very last screen, you find the princess, and then there's some text that shows up on the screen. Mm-hmm. And the text says, "Congratulations," not congratulations, congratulations. This story is happy end.
Oh, yeah, that's a good translation, miss.
Yeah, just a tad.
Yeah.
And, games like this were notorious for translation snafus, but this is one of the most memorable ones for me. Mm-hmm. Because this story is happy end. There's just something special about that. I don't know exactly what it is, but something special about it. But how many quarters would you throw into Ghosts and Goblins in one visit?
I mean, it was easily, you can go $2-3 easily. If it was, if you really wanted to go and try and get everything done, easily I was going through. I mean, literally rolls of quarters is what you would have, but
nice.
Yeah, you're going through at least a couple of bucks, trying to get to what you wanted to do. But yeah, it was.
Did you ever beat it?
I did.
Oh, nice, good for you.
It took everything I had, and it was on a Saturday, and yeah, I pumped $5 into the machine.
And hey, $5 is a lot for a kid.
Heck yeah, it is.
I know. You missed out on gum and candy and all that stuff just to get this story as a happy end.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's another screen I'm looking at online from the game that I completely forgot about. But when you start one of the levels, it says, "This room is an illusion and is a trap devised by Satan. Go ahead, dauntlessly make rapid progress." Progress missing the second S.
Oh, of course.
So progress.
Progress, yes.
Progress, yeah. So yeah. So Ghost, and then of course they ported it to the Nintendo. I don't know if you had it on the NES.
I did.
I did as well.
Continue the frustration.
And its sequel. I also had. You remember Ghouls and Goblins? Of course?
Absolutely.
Yeah. They thought the first one wasn't hard enough.
Yeah, so let's make the second one even harder than the first one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Ghosts and Goblins and Ghouls and I'm sorry, not Ghouls and Goblins. Ghouls and Ghosts.
Yes.
Sorry, my mistake. Ghouls and Ghosts. Both of those are on the top 100, which is nice to know.
Excellent.
All right, so we're going to throw it back to me.
Yes.
I'm trying to think how far back I want to go to start with, but actually, you know what? You did one in the 80s. I'm going to do one in the 90s.
Okay.
And it was actually something that was brought up in the break, which was one I definitely wanted to talk about. X-Men, the arcade game.
Yes.
Okay. I will never forget when that showed up at the video store around the corner from me, because I lived at the video store after school from that moment on. Huge fan of X-Men. Of course, this actually predated the animated series, which is still, in my mind, one of the best animated series of all times, hands down. That and Batman the Animated Series, to me, I don't think you can beat.
Yeah, those are going to be, I was going to say, those are my 1 and 1A.
Yes.
Yes.
Because, and to be honest, I honestly think that was one of the first times I've ever seen an animated show that was serialized. Mm-hmm. Like, they actually continued storylines.
Correct.
From one episode to the next, instead of just, you had one 20-minute episode and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
But X-Men the arcade game, to me, first off, you got to play as 5 really awesome characters in Dazzler.
Yeah.
Because nobody really wanted to be Dazzler.
No.
But you had your choice of Cyclops, Wolverine, Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Storm, and then Dazzler. But one of the coolest elements
actually
of
was Jubilee.
No, it was not Jubilee. It was Dazzler.
Was it Dazzler?
No,
It was Jubilee.
No, it was Dazzler. And I'll tell you why I know this. Because the arcade game was actually originally based off of the 1989 pilot episode for the X-Men animated series that they originally wanted to make, and it was called Pride of the X-Men.
Okay.
And it's centered around Kitty Pryde, who was Shadowcat.
Yes.
But the 6 other characters in the show were the characters they wound up using in the arcade game.
Oh.
And they actually took that animated style from the pilot episode they shot and used it for the arcade game. Which is why you have those 6 characters and the villains that are in the game.
Oh.
They literally lifted all of it off of that pilot episode. Which, by the way, was paid for by, do you remember RoboCop, the TV series?
Yes.
The animated series?
Mm-hmm.
They were supposed to... They took the money for the 13th episode of that show for that season, and they used it to make the pilot for the X-Men show that never got made.
Oh, wow.
Which then became this game.
Wow, okay.
Yes. I'm full of tons of useless information.
The more you know.
Yes, exactly. Look that up. But yeah, so the arcade game, I still remember like one of the coolest things was that if you were lucky enough, you would find the arcade with a 4-player cabinet, and if you were really lucky, you would find the 6-player cabinet, so you can actually have 6 kids playing the game at the same time.
That's rare. That was rare.
Yeah, the 6-player one is super rare, but I think my video store had the 4-player one, and that was enough.
Yeah.
They had a 2-player, a 4-player, and a 6-player. The 4-player one was the one I played the most until they released the game on Xbox Live, and you can download it.
Oh.
They released that back in 2010.
Okay.
And of course, it's super easy to beat it when you're on Xbox Live because you can just hit continue over and over again. You don't have to worry about quarters.
Exactly.
But I just remember, and also the game had some really cool little, little sound bites. So like, I remember, nothing moves the blob when you would play the blob. Or the very famous line from Magneto, which again, here's another lost in translation line. Welcome to die.
Yes.
Because Magneto talks that way.
Yes, he does. Not.
So X-Men the arcade game also on the top 100 list.
Excellent.
On the international, for the International Arcade Museum. I'm going to toss it back to you.
Yeah, there was another one that I enjoyed playing, Double Dragon.
Oh, Double Dragon. Oh, who doesn't remember Double Dragon?
What I call the original quote-unquote Street Fighter. Because, you fought in the mean streets of whatever the city was called. And,
yes.
In Junior. And so it was just a fantastically awesome game, with the kicking and punching of Chuck Norris style fighting. So yes,
you know what I loved about Double Dragon, or one of the most memorable things to me about Double Dragon is I think it was one of the first games I ever saw where there was violence to women. Because when the game starts off, one of the bad guys punches your girlfriend in the stomach before she gets carried off, and I'm like, wow,
yeah, that's not right.
No, not only is that not right, if that were in a video game today. First off, it would get outlawed, I think.
Yes.
Well, certain levels of it. I mean, because you have Street Fighters coming out still and whatnot. But in the real world, she would get punched in the gut, and then she would either kick your ass, or she would serve you with a lawsuit and take all your money.
Absolutely.
So for just for Double Dragon, for the next Double Dragon sequel, just so you know, that's probably what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of litigation.
But I have a question for you because
Yes.
Larry and I, a week or two ago, we did a special, not a special episode, but we did an episode where we focused on fighting games, and we were talking about Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, basically Marvel vs. Capcom, those type of fighting games. Would you put Double Dragon in that category? Because there's been a debate. Really?
It's still a fighting game. I mean, it's not a fighting in the sense of like Street Fighter and King of Fighters and that, but I still consider it a fighting game.
All right, interesting.
Yeah.
I guess we'll agree to disagree. I was of a mind that it didn't belong in there, and I think Larry felt like it did. So,
and I think it's because
I'm being outnumbered here on.
I think if it's hand-to-hand combat, if you want to put it in that strenuous of a, then it's like, okay, it makes sense for Mortal Kombat that it doesn't fit. But I just call it a fighting game because you're fighting, so that's how I consider it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, see, to me, I would just call it a like an action platformer.
Sure.
But that's me.
Again, agree to disagree.
We will agree to disagree. I'm right. So that Double Dragon, not surprisingly, on the top 100 list. I'm going to throw one at you.
Okay.
And I'm going to throw this one at you because we are about to see a movie come out for this game, and it is on the top 100 list. Do you remember Rampage?
Yes, I do remember Rampage.
Okay, so the first question has to be, who did you play as?
I always played as the monkey.
Really? Oh, interesting. I always played as Lizzie.
Really?
I liked the lizard. I don't know why.
I think it's kind of the whole Donkey Kong feel to me.
Maybe.
That's probably why I played as the monkey character. But it's,
I would have assumed it was King Kong, but sure.
I go
either way.
Column A, column B.
Yeah, exactly. What I always found interesting though is that like most people I knew never chose the wolf.
That's true. I never chose the wolf at all.
No, see, I always went Lizzie, and if I went for somebody else, it would always be the monkey whose name I can't remember.
George.
Right now. It was George. Yeah,
Yeah.
George. It was always George or Lizzie. I never went for the wolf.
I don't know why though.
No, I don't know either.
Yeah.
But hey, c'est la vie.
Exactly.
But I mean, the overall appeal for this game. I mean, the fact that not only did you get to destroy buildings, but you got to eat people.
Yeah.
And there was just something fun about that.
And the fun one was if like you ate the guy with the flamethrower, you would like blow flames out of your mouth for a little bit.
And
Like indigestion.
Yeah. Well, who doesn't like fire?
Who doesn't?
I love fire.
Fire's good.
Fire is great. All right, back to you.
Wow.
Pick a game. Any arcade game.
Here's a blast from the past. Frogger.
Oh, Frogger. Yes, it's on the list, and yes, it's awesome.
Of course, and I played with both on Atari and of course in the arcade. But it was just one of those games again. It was beautifully frustrating.
Yes.
You know, especially the higher in the levels you got, the cars went faster. The logs got smaller. The logs dipped in the water quicker.
Yep.
You know, so and my thing was always trying to get, when you went into the into your home, try to get the one with the fly. Because you get the little extra...
You get the little extra thing, yeah.
You get a little extra bit to it. So
what used to always drive me nuts was you would get all the way across the board and you're about to jump into your home and the crocodile shows up with its mouth open and kills you. And I'm like...
Exactly.
I was like, after all that work, because it would take you forever to just even get through traffic.
Yes.
I'm like, forget about the logs. I was like, the traffic part was so hard.
Yeah.
I was like, and then they have that stupid alligator, man.
At the very end, you're just like, oh...
No, not cool, guys. Not cool. But yes, I absolutely loved that game.
Yes.
Loved that game. All right, switching gears.
Okay.
I guess it is. No, yeah, we are going to switch gears. I was thinking of a different game, and I'm like, well, that's not really switching gears. That's staying in the same one. But we're going to go a little bit later into the 90s, and we're talking late 90s, somewhere around 97, 98. House of the Dead. Do you remember House of the Dead?
Yeah, shooting game.
Shooting game, yes.
Yes.
But what I loved about it was that it was very... I guess up until that point, most shooting games that I played were very side-scrolling. Like, you would shoot everything on the screen and then you move to the side. This one gave you, like, a full 3D experience. And, like, after you were done shooting the zombies in one area, like, you went further into the board. And then you moved up on the board. And it was just so interesting to get, like, that three-dimensional experience with the shooting game. It was... And to be honest with you, they just did it so well.
They did, because... And you would almost... It was like watching a scary movie.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, if you weren't really paying attention, you had the one zombie that would come out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, crap.
And it bit you.
And it bit you, and that was it. So, yeah, it was very well done, that game.
Yeah. And I don't know if you had it on home console or not, but I think I had the sequel, House of the Dead 2, which I thought was far superior.
Yes.
Also on the top 100 list. But House of the Dead 2 on Sega Dreamcast.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah, I did not have that one.
No, and unfortunately that was one of those games where you could use, you can use a gun, you can use the light gun for the game, but of course nowadays with the LED TVs, the light guns don't work anymore, so you have to use your controller, and it's not as fun.
No, because that was the whole point, is that you got the gun because it was a part of the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So House of the Dead, definitely one of the ones towards the latter years for me that I remember fondly.
Yes.
Back to you.
Wow. In that same vein, I don't know if I'm saying the name of this game correctly, but it was another shooter, and this was one because you could hide behind, I think it was Time Cop?
Time Crisis?
Time Crisis, yes.
Pilot?
Time Crisis.
Time Crisis, okay.
Yeah, so this is along the same line as House of the Dead, but you were cops. And you had a pedal, so you would be able to push the pedal to shoot, and then release the pedal to duck. And it was just that whole same kind of feel, kind of the first person shooter like you have now, where you can hide behind things and shoot around corners and things like that. It was along that same line, but it was fast paced and.
Yep, I remember
absolutely.
That. Yep. I remember the sequel more than I remember Time Crisis 2.
Okay.
More than Time Crisis, the original Time Crisis. Which, by the way, the original Time Crisis did not make the top 100, but the sequel did.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, of course, you improve on the original.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I feel about like House of the Dead too. It's like I really feel like that was like far superior to the first one. Okay, we can't talk about arcade games without mentioning these, and I know Larry and I just talked about fighters not too long ago, but can't go on without talking about Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Street Fighter put it on the map. Mortal Kombat made it absolutely awesome.
Yeah, it amped it up, and this were the games where this is kind of the first special Mortal Kombat, the first real controversial game.
Yep.
Because you were pulling spines out of people and freezing people and blowing them up and cutting them with fans, and it was a really awesome game because it was so. I know it's going to sound terrible. It was so fun because it was so violent.
Yes, exactly.
But it was the violence that made it so much fun. I mean, it's over the top. but that's what was cool about it.
Exactly, and it's also one of the games that's responsible for the rating system we have on video games now.
Exactly.
Thank you, U.S. government. Did you have well, first off, which was your preference, Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat? Mortal Kombat. Okay, and then who was your favorite character to play?
Scorpion.
Scorpion. It always came down to two, didn't it? It had to be Scorpion or Sub-Zero.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was always Sub-Zero.
Yeah, that was the two. I mean, they honestly could have made Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, and everyone would have played it forever because it was because of the most fun characters to have with their end game.
Very true. Well, they did make a Sub-Zero specific video game on console. It did not do well.
No.
When they tried their Mythology series and do like the whole story mode.
Yeah.
Didn't work out so well.
Not so much.
No.
But Street Fighter was fun for a whole different reason because the characters, again, over the top.
Yes.
But it was just, and once again, those are one of the, you either played with Ryu or Ken.
Actually, I never played as Ryu or Ken.
Really?
No, I did not like them. I preferred Chun-Li.
Really?
Yes. Because everybody I used to play... I remember when I used to play in the video game store, because they had that game too. Mm-hmm. Everybody I used to play against was cheap. They always did the same move over and over again. They would always catch me. So then the only way I would combat them was with Chun-Li's kick. Because they would jump up, and then they would fall right into the kick. And I'm like, that's what you get. E Honda's hand would do the same thing.
I used to love playing with Zangief, actually.
Ooh, Zangief was a good player.
And
he was slow, but when he hit you, he did a lot of damage.
A lot of power, but he was also a wrestler. So, of course, that whole going into the wrestling they were talking about earlier, it's the whole wrestling, but he was also, he was heavy-handed. A little slower, but he was fun to watch his finishing moves.
Yes.
So that's why I liked Zangief as well.
No, that's a good call. I can understand that. Street Fighter was one of the ones that kind of faded away for me after Mortal Kombat came out, but there's nothing like playing Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Mm-hmm. I'm going to swing over to back to the 80s because this is definitely one worth mentioning. Also on the top 100 list, Gauntlet. The original Gauntlet. Mm-hmm. That one I remember ate a ton of my quarters.
Gauntlet did do that, yes.
Oh, man, because... just first off, they were I think 100 levels in the game, so you were never going to get to the end unless you were awesome at it.
Yes.
But just the fact that you had it was first off, it was a fantasy game, and I was huge into Dungeons and Dragons as a kid.
Yes. Okay.
I wish I still had the time for it these days, but I don't. It's too involved. But huge into fantasy, so the fact that you could be a wizard or a warrior or an elf, absolutely appealing. And then just the top-down view of these massive levels, were just so much fun. Yeah,
it was a crazy fun game, and you could relive it as, like you're saying, as your own type of character, which made it fun.
Yeah. Plus, I like the fact that your quarter actually gave you health, which was your timer. Mm-hmm. So you had, and that you put in a quarter, you got 2,000 seconds in the game, and then as you took damage, it went down faster.
Correct.
And then when it ran out, you had to put another quarter in. Mm-hmm. But I also remember the audio clips from the game. So it's if you shot the food, it was "Don't shoot food."
Yeah.
It would actually tell you not to do it. I'm yes, I know that. I'm but I'm there are 100 ghosts surrounding me, and I need to kill them all. And,
exactly, I need to do this.
The food was, an acceptable loss at that point. But yeah, Gauntlet's still one of those games that I absolutely love going back to and playing. Mm-hmm. I remember the first one and the sequel.
Okay,
there were two. I still own both of them on the NES.
Oh wow!
And then there was, it later moved into 3D. When N64 came out, we got Gauntlet Legends, Gauntlet's Our Legacy. So there's always an opportunity for another Gauntlet game. I'd be down for it. All right, last one.
Last one
for you, Jay.
Oof.
Dig deep.
I'm digging deep. I'm gonna actually go with one that I thought was really fun. Cool game, Spy Hunter.
Ooh, Spy Hunter was awesome.
Spy Hunter was one of those games where you were I'm going to be a secret agent, and here's a killer car that I'm driving with all these cool things, but it was just a fun game to play, with the oil slicks and the spikes on the wheels, and but just the fact that you had to really concentrate on your driving and how you got in and out of traffic and around your enemies. It was just a really cool, fun game to play.
Yeah. I remember, again, that's one of those ones I remember playing more when they ported it. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I always loved about it was the music.
Yeah.
Because they gave you that spy action kind of vibe to it, so it was just awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to finish us off with definitely a classic. And it's one I know Larry does not like, specifically, which is why I want to talk about it with you.
Sure,
because he hates it. So, but it's definitely it's definitely one I remember most fondly because not only did I love it, my dad loved it. It was ported to the Atari 2600, but I used to play it in the arcade too. Do you remember Missile Command?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my god. I wasted hours and hours and hours trying to perfect that game. And there was no perfecting it. You lost eventually.
Absolutely.
There's no question about it. But Missile Command, that came out way back in, I want to say, 1980. And you were just a little, I want to say, like almost like an underscore. You know, like when you type and you underscore? That's literally what your character was.
Yeah.
You're an underscore on a screen that was tasked with stopping these evil missiles from hitting your cities.
Correct.
And if you protected your cities, you had 6 of them. If you had to protect at least one in order to survive to the next round. Obviously, you want to protect all 6. But as the levels go on, the missiles come down faster. Multiple ones come at the same time, so it's hard to stop them.
Yeah.
But I played this game relentlessly, and I remember my dad playing it relentlessly on the Atari. It was just awesome. Simple concept, very addicting game for me.
Yeah, because it was one of those games where it brings out that addicting thing in you, is that I want to save the cities, and what's the best recourse, and how do you do it, and it's strategic. It's amazing, just a very strategic game.
Yes, and I think to this day, it's like one of those games where whenever like an Atari Classics compilation comes out or something like that, it's always on there, and it makes me so happy to see it. It just really is. All right, cool. And then that's just like maybe like a dozen games, a dozen arcade games that are on this top 100 list. So for those of you out there that are interested in seeing what is on this list, you can check out www.arcade-museum.com to see the top 100. Or just, once again, if you're listening to our podcast, hit up our Facebook page and sound off on some of your favorite arcade games of all time. All right, Jay, it's time for us to celebrate some retro birthdays. Awesome. So this is exactly like it sounds. We like to celebrate games that have come out, this time, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago. I don't know. But anyway, we've got a handful of games I wanted to share with you. So first off, we're going to say a happy 20th birthday to House of the Dead 2.
Oh, right,
the sequel, the one we were just talking about last segment.
Yeah, almost able to drink. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. House of the Dead 2, you are almost able to drink. That will be next year.
Yes.
All right, for now, put down that beer. All right, celebrating its 25th birthday.
Oh, right on.
Came out in 1993, NBA Jam.
Yay! All right.
We talked about that earlier, too.
Sure
so happy 25. And our 30th birthday goes to the sequel to Ghosts and Goblins. Ghouls and Ghosts came out in 1988.
Oh my gosh, wow, nice.
Yeah, that is 30 years old.
30 years old, wow.
Yep, which reminds me that I am older than that.
Yeah, and I am even older than that.
Yes.
So, yes.
Celebrating its 35th birthday. We actually did not mention this game on the top 100, and that's on the top 100, and I wanted to, because this was another game that was just really awesome to play. It's been 35 years since the debut of Dragon's Lair.
Oh, wow, I totally didn't forget, but yes, that game was amazing.
I know, it was literally like sitting there and playing through an animated episode.
Yes, it was.
Which was just really awesome. And last but not least, we are. This game is actually from my birth year, but it is slightly older than me.
Okay.
Thankfully. So a happy 40th birthday to the one and only Space Invaders.
Yes. Absolutely.
Oh, man. I remember playing that game as a kid, but it's nice to know that it's as old as I am. And that is this week's Retro Birthdays. All right, and this has been another week of the Retro Gamers. It's very rare when Larry doesn't join us. In fact, I think this may be only the second time that he's missed an episode, and we're at 87, which is amazing.
It is.
I miss episodes all the time because I'm always traveling to Asia. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's my job, and I enjoy my job, and I like my job. If anybody at my job is listening, hey, I want to keep it. But yeah, Jay, I can't thank you enough for joining me on this episode. And I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Well, would you come back and do it again?
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to.
You're not invited.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah, no problem. But, But I shouldn't treat you that poorly. It's not like you brought up any Virtual Boy references.
True.
And we all know how much the Virtual Boy sucks. Hashtag VB sucks. Larry, you are not here to defend it this week, so I can say it as much as I want. Hashtag VB sucks, VB sucks, VB sucks, VB sucks. And for those of you out there who listen to us, you know that you can find us on theretrogamers.com. That is our official website. You can find us on Instagram at @_retrogamers, and you can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/retrogamerspodcast. You can listen to us on Spreaker, on Amazon Alexa, on TuneIn, on iTunes, iHeartRadio. We are everywhere. We are invading your minds with our boring, useless information on retro video games. Jay has only done it once this week, and maybe he'll come back and do it again for you. As always, this has been another week of the Retro Gamers. We hope you enjoyed listening, and we will catch you on the flip side.